Okay, so let's talk about the last material for this particular unit. Now we're going to be able to use our calculators. So these are what we're going to call the calculator problems. And as I said earlier, when we say calculator problems, we mean graphing calculator. All right, so big critical piece of information. We need to be in degree mode on your calculator to do this. So on the TIs, the mode button right there, you press the mode button, turn it on first is always helpful. Okay, press the mode button. You'll see you've got this list. The third line here says radian degree, because we started talking about radians and how I said radian is the default mode for the TIs because it's so important. So we have to shift it to degrees. So you'd say, oh no, it's in radian, so I have to shift it over to be in degree. So we have to be in degree mode to do this. Okay. All right. So let's say you've got a problem like this. Somebody comes along, they say, oh, look, angle A is 58 degrees. Side C is 12 meters. I'm just making this up. So we need to find side A and side B. So I need to find those pieces of information. You're going to say, oh no, what am I going to do? Well, as always, first thing I would do is draw a picture of it. And once again, somebody yells at me and says, what if we draw it different than you? It doesn't matter as long as you have it labeled properly. So if I call this A, so I'm making that 58 degrees. As soon as I make that A right there, everything else falls in place. C is always the hypotenuse. So C is 12. B goes up there. So that guy's little a and that guy's little b. Right? Soon as you label that thing, as soon as you label that A, everything falls in place. Then you're going to say to yourself, and here's the fun part. Everybody ready? Oh, to find B, B's easy. Nobody's going to get offended by B. You're just going to say, oh, 90 degrees minus 58 degrees is 32 degrees. Because these two guys have to be 90, because that guy's 90, it's 180 degrees for a triangle. So to find the missing angle is pretty simple. Now, here's the part where it gets fun. We got to find one of these guys, and we're going to use trigonometry to do it. So here's my recommendation. I'd say, well, I got to find angle A. One person says, I'm going to use the 58 degree angle. So one person says, I'm going to use the 58 degree angle. So they'd say for the 58 degree angle, the angle A is across from, opposite, the 12 is the hypotenuse. That sounds like sine, opposite hypotenuse. So that sounds like the sine of 58 degrees would be equal to A over 12. Opposite of the 58 over the hypotenuse. Do a little algebra, cross multiply. I don't know, this might be arithmetic. So 12 times sine 58. And this is where you get out your calculator and you say, okay, so I've got 12 times sine 58. I close the parentheses all the time just out of habit. 12 times sine 58. And look at that wonderful number right there. 10.176577715. Okay, far out. So just out of habit, I'm going to round to three places. I'm going to say 10.177. Okay. Now, here's where, oh, just for the record, then somebody else says, well, I want to use the 32. You could have said, if you wanted to, you could have said for the 32, A is adjacent. So you could have said cosine 32 is equal to A over 12. So A is equal to 12 times cosine 32. And if you punch that out, 12 times cosine 32, you get the exact same number. So there you go, two different ways to work the problem. Now here's where people are going to get all contrary with me. Now that you know what A is, somebody's going to say, no, I've got two of the three sides. I can use the Pythagorean theorem. But if you use the Pythagorean theorem, you're using a rounded number. unless you use the number that is right there on your calculator. I hate to even do this, but I'll do it. You've got that answer right on your calculator. Where am I? So there you are. That's your current answer. That is in your calculator unrounded. If you wanted to do this, if you wanted to say, whoops, if you wanted to say second answer, that button right there, second answer, I love that button, squared, because that answer square, oh man, I just did this backwards. I'm going to say minus 12 squared, so I'm doing the problem backwards, equals to negative, but so negative 40, or I mean, 40 point blah, blah, blah. And then do the square root of that. So square root of second answer. See, 6 point blah, blah. You could certainly do that. 6.3598117. You could do that. And I would say, great, far out, you got the right answer. I'm so happy. But I've got another recommendation instead of doing that, because if you use the rounded number, if you use a rounded number in the Pythagorean theorem, you're going to get an inaccurate answer, and I can't stand that. So what I would recommend is, let's just go to B here and do something like cosine 58 is equal to B over 12. Cosine 58, here's 58, cosine is adjacent hypotenuse, so B is equal to 12 times cosine 58. And just for the record, check this out. This is the number I got when I did the Pythagorean theorem using an unrounded number, using the number stored in my calculator. If I do 12 times cosine 58, look at that, we get the exact same answer. And I think it just took a lot fewer steps. So that would be 6.359. You with me? Okay, so I just think it's easier like that. And for that matter, you could also do the sine of 32. You could have said sine of 32 is equal to B over 12 and say 12 times sine 32, you would have got the exact answer. Now, just as a quick check, because I know how we are, we ought to be checking our work. Everybody should be checking your work. So you say, okay, I'm going to check my work, because everybody checks their work. All right. A should be the longest side. I know my picture's not like that, but the picture is just my slob work. A should be the longest side. B is the shorter side. C is always the hypotenuse. So A is longer than B, which we expected. A is longer than B because A is across from the bigger angle. And C is the longest. It's the hypotenuse. So C is the longest side. B is the shortest side. So we have a quick check like that. Does that seem reasonable? Okay. What if this is basically the same kind of problem? I don't know. Let's do one that's a little bit more complicated. Okay, so let's say angle B is 25 degrees. Let's say side B is equal to 40. So I need to find angle A, side B. Okay. So once again, everybody says, well, I better draw a picture of it. So if you draw a picture of it, pretend it's a perfect picture. So you can say, okay, I'm going to call that 25. That's B. And side B is 40. So if that's B, that automatically becomes A. So there's A and there's C. Okay. And now we just got to put all the pieces together. And the reason I chose this one's going to be a little bit more complicated. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if this is going to be more complicated or not. It's easy to find A. Angle A would just be 90 minus 25, right? So 65 degrees. Those two had to be 90. All right, now here's the tricky part. Or okay, this part isn't tricky. We need to find side A. So give me some suggestions. See if we were in class, which with some of y'all, maybe we should do this in class instead of doing it like this. What I would say, the easiest way to do it is to say, I'm going to use 65 and do opposite over adjacent, which is tangent. I'm going to say tangent 65 equals A over 40. That's what I would do, because I only have to do one step. I have to cross multiply, just have to cross multiply like that. So I'd say, okay, far out, 40 times tangent 65. So 85.78, blah, 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 blah. And then somebody else says, no way, I want to use the, I can't use the A and the C. I can't say, well, let's do sine of 65. Sine of 65 would be A over C. Well, it's got two unknowns. That doesn't work. But somebody else argues with me and says, no way, I'm going to do the 25 because that's my given information and I'm just attached to it. So you say, okay, tan 25. Tan 25. Opposite is 40. Adjacent is A. So see, the problem here is it's going to take an extra step algebraically. Cross multiply the A times tan 25 equals 40. Then I have to divide by the tan 25. So A is equal to 40 over tan 25. So that took me an extra step. But when I do that, 40 divided by tan 25, I end up with the exact same answer. The exact same answer, 85.780, because I said three places, okay? And then for, whoops, this should be C. That should say C. See, I'm kind of stuck here. I could say sine of 25 equals 40 over C. So in this case, I'm kind of stuck. Sine of 25 is 40 over C. So cross multiply, divide. So I've got 40 divided by sine 25. So 94.648. Okay, so I had to do a little bit of extra algebra there, which is a little bit annoying and might have potentially messed me up. But that's your two basic problems when you are given an angle and you're finding two sides. Okay. Now we're going to do the next type of problem. So hold on.